Thank you for everyone being here in 3D. Isn't it lovely to be back in human interaction? I did this last year and there were not that many people in the room, so I'm super grateful to everyone for making it, especially the 9:15 session, which, let's face it, if you were at the Netflix party last night, your head is probably a little sore. Okay, so I am joined by the most important people. Why are these fabulous individuals the most important people? Because they are the advertiser. They have money and they spend it on television. So we are going to have a great discussion this morning about what's important to them with regards to converged TV. Everyone's talking about measurement. Everyone's talking about cross-screen, cross-platform. Obviously, we've launched Innovid XP to measure just that. And I'm going to kick it to Lauren to start with some brief introductions, and then we're going to dive into it. Lauren.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I am Lauren Israel. I am the EVP Global Managing Partner at J3, which is the dedicated business unit within UM that manages the Johnson & Johnson business globally. And thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, Andrea Grasti, Director of Media at American Express. I sit in our Global Advertising and Brand Management group, so stewards of the brand and responsible for shepherding what you think and feel when you hear American Express.
Hi, thanks, Joe, for having me. Kate Brady. I am in a new role within the organization, but I've been with PepsiCo for about 12 and a half years. The past 3 years, I've been leading global media innovation and partnership development, but as of about 6 weeks ago, I am standing up a new team called the Next Gen D2C team, and we are out there trying to identify those white spaces where we can generate increased value to our consumers to create two-way conversations that we can connect with our consumers on an ongoing way, which ultimately we hope to lead to consumer lifetime value.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jo Kinsella. I'm the president of Innovid XP. Previously, we were TV Squared, and we were so excited to get acquired by Innovid, and now we're part of a much bigger family, which is fantastic. What we've done is we've put the best of ad serving and creative with measurement, which allows us to do incremental unduplicated reach and tons of outcomes. So we're really going to be talking about KPIs and what these amazing brands expect to see today and as we go into a new future of new measurement where everybody's talking about performance, proof of performance, and outcomes. Today's session is specifically about the multi-screen reality of TV advertisers, and I think it's fair to say ad-supported content platforms have gone nuts over the last two and a half years, certainly during COVID. And the industry-wide quest towards a greater understanding of TV effectiveness, all the way from ad exposure and reach to influence, engagement, and outcomes. So let's get into it. And Kate, I'm going to come to you first on this first question. How are you thinking about your converged TV strategy from media to measurement and creative?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
So we at PepsiCo, I would say, we've always strived to be very consumer-centric in everything that we're doing. In my last team was really built out because of the fact that the media landscape has become so much more fragmented and challenging to connect with our consumers. So we really have to understand that journey and what are the best ways to blend that art and science and the creative and the measurement side to really connect in meaningful ways. And so we've been leveraging we've been looking to build out our own data sets. We think that that's a really great foundation so that we can start building those connections. But understanding what is the right creative that's going to work there. So having really strong measurement to understand, are these the right assets for the right placements, and following them through that journey that can have a connective thread. Mm-hmm. When we think about from a measurement side, we're really trying to leverage the cross-platform optimization tools that we can find to connect that exposure data all the way through to the purchase cycle, which we think will ultimately help us be smarter. And then hopefully, as a part of my new team with the Next Gen D2C, we're building out a CDP that we're hoping to feed all of this information in, so that we can have a better source of truth of how we're measuring our information, so that ongoing, we're just becoming increasingly smarter and more connected with our consumers and serving them with messages that they want at the right time with the right placement, in just a more meaningful and valuable way.
Right, and I think it's understanding that customer journey,
Absolutely.
right? And kind of how clients and consumers are engaging. And with the availability of so many platforms and everyone accessing from so many different devices, how's Amex thinking about that, Andrea?
Well, we have made a concerted effort to really focus on a younger millennial and Gen Z audience. As we think about the future of our company, our growth, that's really where we're leaning in.
Wow.
And I think that's happening across the enterprise, not even just in marketing. But really what that's doing for our team is we have to go where the eyeballs are.
Yeah.
And that is really inviting us to, I would say, almost aggressively rethink our overall video strategy. Mm-hmm. So recently, we've really made strides in where we think about buying video, and it's not just what we buy, it's how we buy it.
Okay.
So that's something that we are, putting a lot of time. I think if one thing can come across today to the room, it's the amount of time we are putting into this, thinking about it, analyzing it. We've talked about the accountability and effectiveness of every dollar.
Yeah.
So that's something that, as we think about, did we reach the right people in the right spaces? How do we thread that together? So there's I would say, a wealth of reporting and analytics that we are doing, and in partnership with our agency we've stood up, I would say, the most vigilant reporting practices. And I think that's important to share because of how much we do have to put time and attention to this topic, because it isn't solved yet.
Right,
So,
and that's different talent, right?
Yeah.
You guys are hiring different people now to be able to look at this data and interrogate it and then make decisions quickly.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, so we think about where you want to have a strategist mindset for certain things, and creative, innovative, but then we need the analytics mindset, because that's what we're sitting with, data all day long.
Yeah, as soon as we are able to get that data in-house, we are clicking into that placement level detail and trying to understand what creatives are driving the best outcomes for our business, what formats are driving the best outcomes.
How do you guys think about performance versus brand? I'm peppering that in there quickly because, everyone's kind of leaned into what's a direct-to-consumer type strategy. I'm just curious, is that the way you think about it? You've got to be able to map this creative aired during this show on Monday, and I need to know how it performed so that I can change it by Wednesday, or is it much longer than that? How do you think about that, Laura?
Yeah, I think it is more difficult than that. The first thing we are doing when we're working with the marketing teams at Johnson & Johnson is always grounding ourselves in the consumer journey first, and how they interact with media and how they interact with video. And for them, it's a really fluid journey. They're not thinking about television versus digital video in the way that we are. So certainly, I think we can complicate what could be, a little bit more simple for us to navigate. And the holy grail is really for us being able, to plan, understanding, holistic reach and frequency, regardless of the app or input that the content is being digested from. And then kind of similar to the last points we were talking about, really being able to do that mid-campaign optimization to understand what placements are driving performance, and then ultimately, have that measurement attribution post-campaign. Okay. So that we can understand what's driving sales.
Yeah. Okay, so we hear a lot about, post-campaign, and then we hear a lot about, can we actually have access to this midway through, so we can start to see as soon as we've got something that actually might mean something, so that we can make a change against it. When we think about navigating modern approaches to measurement, there's been a lot of chat, right? About GRPs and currencies and everything else. And I don't know, you tell me, but I don't, when I'm talking to my brands, they're not really asking me specifically about that. They're more attuned to, we're changing our strategy, we want to really move to a cross-platform media mix, and we want to know what's working and what's not working so that we can move things around. Lauren, I know you said we're working towards the holy grail of holistic reach and frequency measurement. Kate, how do you think about that in the world of Pepsi? Like all the swirl around measurement, how do you think about it?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned, we're in the process of building out a CDP, which we are really bullish on, hoping that it'll help us enable a lot more real time in our optimization. I think what we talk about is really those no missed opportunities, and how can we take the data that we're pulling in to really continually optimize to make those better decisions and make sure that every dollar is working harder than the last, because especially in challenging economic times, it's so critical for us to ensure that we're spending the dollars the right way, and addressing it in meaningful ways to our consumers, and whether that's driving, helping us be more personalized in our connections with the consumer, but ensuring that we have the right deliveries from a reach and frequency perspective, and that there's sufficiency in our messaging and support to these audiences. So it's a combination across a number of different metrics that we're always looking at. I would say that, for us, ROAS is where we've been looking at a number of different, and that's sufficient for, it's getting us some level of granularity of the data, trying to connect that purchase level or the exposure data down to a purchase level, leveraging clean room technologies to help us to get there. But I do think our goal is really to be able to clearly articulate what is driving consumer lifetime value, and how do we get to those measures so that we can just continually grow the loyalty of our consumers and build those relationships from now and forever.
Awesome point. Joe, I have to say, you're talking about mid-campaign optimizations. Where is that life? I don't live it.
It is available.
Mid, you can wait until, we're in brand marketing and we cannot wait until mid. So I think that's an important thing too, that even when you're talking about mid to upper funnel, you still have to be constantly assessing, and where you can pull yourself back, think about the bigger picture, but like the amount of time that we are really spending, I don't know if I want the time to go down to the level that you used of like this show ran and now we'll do. But if we had all the resources in the world, I think we would love to operate as detailed as that. We crave that level of, I think, detail. But
I think that's where we have to get to.
And that's what the reality is in the reality future. It's not there yet. But how do we continue to build, and how do we enable the MarTech to help us get there?
And what happens in the absence of it, which is we think about connected TV in the absence of that data as just an extension of linear TV, which leads us to a place where we're using it as an awareness play. And it can be, it has the power to be so much more
so much more than that. Yeah, for sure. Any metrics that stand out to, Kate's been talking about ROAS, any metrics that stand out to you that you're like, this is the one that we always want to look at?
We are driven by consideration. That is our primary KPI, and like I said, what people are thinking and feeling, and the attitudinal metrics that we're looking to drive with our brand campaigns. But we are looking at additional metrics that we can start to measure against or buy against. Attention has taken hold as something that we're looking at. And we continue to think about what partners and other types of metrics or currency can we start to maybe triangulate. Really what we want are predictors or indicators of, will this lead to increased consideration? So those are the spaces we've been in, but it's never done. We're never done. So.
And it's changing, right? As more platforms come online, as more data becomes available, as more people look at different video platforms. I was actually in London at Future of Media last week, and I saw the new Amex ad for Gen Z. And I'll just let everybody know in this room, I felt very old. Okay? They were in a nightclub. Okay? These shoes might look like I go to nightclubs, but I don't. But it was a great ad.
Thank you.
It was a great ad. And it was a new, such a new feel for Amex, and it was Amex Gold, and it was...
Well, you have mentioned creative, and I think we're also circling creative through our functions as well. And how do we think about the role that it plays? And the effectiveness of right message into the right space. So as we think about convergent TV and the landscape being fragmented, that is something too that I would say we partner very closely with our creative leads and counterparts to make sure that they're at the table on the conversation, because they have to be.
They have to be.
Yeah.
Lauren, for Johnson & Johnson, anything from a metric standpoint that you guys really hone in on?
I mean, we obviously are thinking about, consumers throughout the funnel, so not just focused on consideration, but certainly awareness, consideration, and clearly conversion, and at any point understanding that consumers can really sit anywhere throughout that funnel. Certainly, ROAS is a key metric for us in understanding how our dollars that are being spent in market are delivering sales. And again, just coming back to having that multi-touch attribution so that we can really make those optimizations as soon as the data is available for us.
So good to hear. Okay, so what did you learn from this year's Converged TV strategy, and what's going to be different in 2023? Kate, starting with you.
So I would say we've been on this journey where, we've always been historically a massive upfront investor, and I would say that over the COVID definitely accelerated the cord cutting and the challenges of that marketplace, and so we've continued to see an evolution to more CTV in our mix and more looking for more ways to just understand that journey and the cross-platform optimization. And so we've continued to push with our partners for more flexibility, for more transparency, for more just accountability to delivering on the goals that we have. And so I've learned, how we can push to see that transparency and flexibility within the mix that helps us have better results in the end. What I do think is that there's an opportunity for us to just really continue to push the CTV, while we know there's such a massive opportunity from a data-informed approach and delivering against specific audiences and more personalized messages. The CPMs still tend to be quite high, so we're still very bullish on trying to work through those challenges. And especially with some of these new platforms that are coming out, while it's amazing that we have ad opportunities in a lot of these spaces, they need to be measurable. You need to be able to target. They can't be these outrageous CPMs. It's not a justifiable approach for us. Like I said, every dollar needs to work harder than the last. I can't justify some of the CPMs that are there within the mix when we know how efficient linear TV still can be. So it's a blended approach, and really trying to make sure that you're making the right decisions for your overall budget and having that cross-platform approach there.
And I think it's super important, the world has obviously gone CTV crazy, right? Yes. In the pandemic, certainly, there was a new platform every week, and CTV is like the new cool kid on the block. But again, linear is still massive. Linear still drives reach, brand awareness, all these things that we really need that have to be part of the mix.
Yes.
And I love how diplomatic Kate was about saying CPMs are still high, and platforms like Netflix are coming out going, we don't need measurement, people will just buy it because we're Netflix, even though we might be super expensive. But I think it's going to be interesting to see, as we see more AVOD platforms, obviously Disney, Netflix, people are really leaning into this stuff because they see that potentially there's a way to activate net new audiences. And I think specifically when you're thinking about, a Gen Z strategy, we were talking backstage, my daughter watches YouTube and TikTok, and kind of how do you think about those? Because we've come from kind of linear being called the dinosaur, CTV, like the new kid, and now we've got all of this content being created on TikTok and YouTube. So again, the future is moving away from us, and we've got to be able to move to where the puck is going. So what do you think about 2023, Andrea? How's it shaping up for you guys?
Well, I would say this past year really was a big step change for us in how we thought about our video strategy. As I mentioned, it still commands the largest portion of our media investment, but it's where we're placing the dollars. We actually are giving a lot of thought, like I mentioned, how we're buying. That's really becoming, I think, also something that we want to probably push more. We're taking what I would consider educated risks in how we test different partners, platforms, in an effort to get the right video impressions. So that's something that's we're kind of in the midst right now of monitoring and determining the effectiveness of decisions we made this year. And where are we going to actually continue to push? I think the creative synergies are something that we really have appetite to say, do we have the right asset fit for purpose for this platform. So I think we have a little opportunity to kind of continue that.
Yeah.
But I really do think that, we have lifted the hood on, thinking about broadcast, linear, data-driven linear, CTV, are we going direct? Are we using programmatic buys? We are, it's now this three-dimensional way to think about the landscape. So maybe 2023, I would love just clarity and what did we do? But I think we're getting there. I think we will have, we've done so much that I think we're sitting on the right kind of, if not outright learnings, certainly better
the
perspective.
Framework.
Yes.
To be able to keep kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I think the hope is that we move away and start to move away from the conversation about channel mix and sort of thinking of it as an either or, right? So should we be planning CTV or should we be planning
It's all TV, right?
Linear?
It's just TV.
And really focusing, our thinking in 2023 on how the different channels are working together.
Right.
And how we are recreating strategies to use the reach of one channel to build incremental reach against another, or, retargeting strategies so that we can drive lower funnel tactics on consumers that are, potentially underserved on mass reach channels. So really thinking about how all of the channels are complementing each other, as opposed to so much of the conversation, which has been very much focused on thinking of it as an either or.
Okay, great point. Okay, we've got just under 5 minutes left, and I want to do a little bit of a standard conference question that every panelist has to get asked, which is, if you had a magic wand and you could fix anything to make your job, your life easier, what would it be, Lauren?
Yeah, I think for me, are we going to get a magic wand?
Does anyone at Adweek have a magic wand they could just quickly bring out? I should have brought one with me.
Yeah, I think for me, it is the challenge of the fragmentation and really being able to break down those walled gardens or go back in time and never allow them to be built. I do feel like the data exists. It's just so fragmented and exists right now in a silo, which makes our jobs more challenging than they need to be.
Right.
And so it would be breaking down those walled gardens. And, I do feel like big data is going to be key in the future. And we as marketers and advertisers really hold the power to demand transparent, holistic third-party measurement.
And I think, just from an Innovid perspective, what we've heard is, obviously, we don't want you guys kind of having to deal with stitching together results from walled gardens, which is why we came out with Innovid XP, which was you don't have to deploy any tags or pixels because we've already integrated with all of the walled gardens, which means we can measure them for you. So I think it's about, if I had a magic wand, it would be educating the market on what's available already. Yeah. Because I think there is still a lot of we have to measure this one this way and this one this way, and then we have to figure it out for ourselves, versus partnering with somebody like us and saying, hey, don't worry, we got you. Results will be available tomorrow. Shameless plug. Shameless. Andrea.
Yes. Well, the measurement piece is definitely a big one. I would say I actually sit a little bit in the camp of facilitating more planning and almost buy-side decisioning.
Right.
I could live without 80 rows in Excel of years where our video partners and places.
Amen.
So,
yeah.
So I think that is certainly a part of it. But then I think also one of the things that for American Express, we stand for powerful backing of our card members. So we actually do have very much that lens on things and thinking about not just our card members, but prospects and unlocking value. So the fragmentation is something that we are sitting around, we're feeling it as consumers ourselves. And that is something that we've had a lot of conversation about, what could be our role, or how do we just champion the need, even just speaking about it.
Right.
That, how do people find the content that they want to watch? And then are we, able to meet them there in a seamless turnkey way?
Yep. More automation, more workflow, for sure. Kate.
I'd echo a lot of what these ladies have said. I think they're very astute in their hopes and wishes. And I would love, this new role that I'm taking on is really about pulling in a lot of the siloed information that we have and trying to uniform it into a much more seamless way so that we can understand our consumers better and drive those value connections. And I do see my magic wand has helped me get there and let's get it done so it's not so much work, because right now it's a really challenging effort to try and aggregate so many different areas where we either don't have access to the data or it's just in so many different siloed efforts. So how do we pull this together so that we can truly have this great understanding of all of our brands and all of those brands' consumers across, our global markets, to really just build these connections with them in a much more meaningful way, ultimately driving our consumer lifetime value.
Very cool. Thank you so much. So you heard it here. You heard it from brand advertisers that matter. You heard it from the people that have money and spend it on television. So I encourage all of you to keep listening. One of the things that we like to do in this industry is make a lot of noise. But there's solutions out there today to help everybody reach the goals that we've heard of today. So be brave. Stay curious, and I'll see you very soon. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.